If you ever notice this quiet psychological change happening in your avoidant partner, don't walk away. What may appear as emotional distance is not always rejection. Sometimes it's love trying to survive its own fear. People with avoidant tendencies rarely show love in the usual obvious ways. They don't constantly say, "I love you." They don't always crave closeness, and they might not know how to express tenderness in words or touch. Instead, they fight an invisible battle inside themselves. On one side, there's a real desire to be close to the person they care about. On the other, there's a deep instinct to run away before that closeness can hurt them. This internal struggle shows up in very subtle ways. The warmth that once flowed so easily between you starts to fade. Their tone becomes quieter, their messages shorter, their smiles less frequent. Their eyes seem distant, as if they're staring through you instead of at you. You can feel them slowly pulling away, and every part of you wants to chase after them, to fix whatever went wrong. But take a moment and pause. This is the most delicate and important moment of all. What you're feeling is not necessarily rejection. It's their heart trying to protect itself from the weight of love. As fear starts to take over their nervous system, their mind and body react as though they are in danger. The closer an avoidant person gets to someone emotionally, the more unsafe they begin to feel inside. Closeness doesn't soothe them the way it might soothe you. It actually sets off alarms in their system. Love for them can feel like something overwhelming, too powerful, too intense, even too risky. So when they pull back a little, it doesn't mean the love is gone. It means that the love has become so strong that it scares them. This is what psychologists call a shift. It's a moment where the words decrease, but the emotions increase. It's a space where silence hides a heart that wants to scream, "I love you," but doesn't know how to say it. If you can recognize this moment and respond with calmness instead of panic, you do something beautiful. You don't just save the relationship, you show them that love can be a safe place. You teach them, through your patience and steadiness, that they can be close to someone without being hurt. Slowly, they begin to trust again. Slowly, they take one step closer. The first sign of this psychological shift is what can be called an emotional freeze. It's that quiet phase when the warmth you once felt from them starts to dim, not all at once, but like a fading sunset. They stop saying sweet things as often. Their texts become shorter, their tone less expressive. Their energy feels flatter, almost like someone trying to shrink inside their own body. You might start to wonder if you did something wrong, if you said something to upset them. But in reality, something deeper is happening. Avoidant people don't stop feeling. They feel too much. Their silence isn't the absence of emotion. It's a wall built to contain it. Inside, they might be thinking about you constantly, analyzing every interaction, trying to control emotions that feel too intense. Their mind tells them, "If I show too much, I'll lose control." So instead of saying how much they care, they shut down. That emotional freeze is their way of protecting themselves from the flood of love that feels unsafe. The second sign of this shift is subtle withdrawal. You might notice them taking longer to reply, avoiding deep conversations, or making excuses to have more alone time. This doesn't always mean they're losing interest. It's often the opposite. They're trying to calm their internal chaos. When love becomes too real, they retreat to regain balance. Their alone time isn't always rejection, it's self-regulation. Their nervous system is overloaded with closeness, and distance becomes the only way they know to breathe. You may feel the urge to chase, to call, to text, to demand answers, but doing so usually makes their fear grow stronger. The more you push, the deeper they retreat. The best thing you can do is give them a gentle kind of space, not cold or punishing space, but safe space, the kind that says, "I'm here when you're ready." That small message of safety can melt the fear over time. The third sign is mixed signals. One moment they'll seem warm and open, the next cold and distant. They might say they care deeply about you, then act as though they're unsure if they want to stay. This confusion doesn't mean they're playing games. It's love and fear pulling them in opposite directions. They might think, "I want to be close," and the very next second, "I need to get away." This push and pull can be painful to experience, but it's part of their emotional wiring. When you see this back and forth behavior, remember that it's not a sign of manipulation, it's a sign of inner conflict. The avoidant wants to love, but fears losing their sense of control or safety. Their independence has protected them for so long that surrendering to intimacy feels like losing themselves. Your calm and consistency during these waves help them learn that connection doesn't have to mean danger. The fourth sign of this shift is quiet presence. After a phase of distance and confusion, you might notice subtle ways they start to show up again, not with big words or romantic gestures, but through small, consistent actions. Maybe they text good morning after days of silence. Maybe they ask about your day, not because they're suddenly over their fear, but because they're slowly finding their way back. These little gestures are their love language. To an avoidant, these moments mean, "I'm trying." It's love learning to breathe again after being afraid for too long. At this stage, patience becomes the most powerful act of love. When you meet their silence with understanding instead of anger, you create safety. When you stop chasing and instead hold steady, you show them that love doesn't have to be earned by perfection or lost by mistakes. You show them that love can simply be. Over time, they begin to unlearn their fears. They start to understand that closeness doesn't always mean danger, that being loved doesn't always lead to pain. It's not an instant change. It's a slow unfolding. The walls they've built begin to soften, not because you broke them down, but because your presence showed them there was no need for them anymore. Avoidant partners don't transform through arguments or pressure. They change through emotional safety. The moment they realize you won't abandon them when they distance themselves, and that your calmness can hold space for both love and fear, they begin to open. That's when real healing starts. Remember, what looks like coldness can often be fear wearing armor. What seems like indifference can be love hiding behind self-protection. They may not always say, "I miss you," but their actions, their subtle glances, their quiet efforts to stay connected in small ways, those are the avoidance version of love. If you've ever loved someone with an avoidant attachment style, you already know that love with them is not loud. It's not constant reassurance or endless words. It's soft, cautious, and sometimes confusing, but when they trust you enough to stay, even when their instinct is to run, that's when you know their love is real. It's fragile, yes, but it's also brave. The truth is, love for an avoidant is not easy. It challenges everything they've built to protect themselves. It forces them to face vulnerability, uncertainty, and loss of control. All things they've spent their life trying to avoid. But when they do open their heart even a little, it's an act of incredible courage. So when you see that psychological shift, the quietness, the distance, the short replies, don't rush to fill the silence. Don't demand constant proof. Instead, let your calmness speak. Let your patience remind them that love can exist without pressure, without panic. Love that grows slowly, safely, and gently is the kind that lasts. And maybe one day, the avoidant who once feared closeness will find peace in it. They'll learn that being loved doesn't mean losing themselves, that being held doesn't mean being trapped. They'll finally understand that love doesn't have to hurt to be real. It can be safe, steady, and kind. Because in the end, love isn't just about passion or excitement. It's about safety. It's about creating a space where both people feel seen, accepted, and free. For the avoidant, that space is everything. They may not say it, but they feel it deeply. And once they do, they'll stay, not because they have to, but because they finally want to. They stop showing because inside them a storm begins to rise. Their emotions come rushing too fast, too deep, and too strong to control. It's not that they don't feel, it's that they feel too much. And when that wave builds inside, they do what they've always learned to do: shut everything down before it spills out. To the outside world, it looks like they've gone numb, like they no longer care, but inside, they're fighting to stay calm. Every part of them is trying to contain chaos that feels too big to manage. They whisper to themselves, "Don't ruin this. Don't get too close. Don't let anyone see too much." They replay your last conversation over and over, analyzing every tiny detail. The words you used, the tone of your voice, even the way your eyes moved. And when you ask them gently what's wrong, they'll quietly say, "Nothing." Because to them, nothing feels safer than revealing what's really going on. It's not dishonesty, it's survival. This silence, this freeze, isn't rejection, it's protection. Their body is reacting the same way it once did years ago, when connection used to mean pain, criticism, or losing control. Back then, love came with danger. So now, when emotions grow too intense, their nervous system takes over. It tells them, stop, pull back, stay safe. They want to reach for you, to hold on, but their survival instinct whispers, don't. So, they freeze in the middle of two powerful needs, the need for love and the need for safety. Their heart wants to connect, but their body wants to protect. This is the painful paradox. The more they care, the colder they might seem. Love for them awakens every buried memory of hurt they thought they had outgrown. It stirs every wound that once taught them closeness could break them. And that's why your reaction matters so deeply here. If you chase, they'll run farther. If you get angry, their walls will only grow taller. But if you remain calm, steady, warm, and grounded, something begins to shift. You start to tell their body a story it has never known before, that love does not have to hurt, that staying doesn't have to mean pain. When you don't react with panic or punishment, but instead stay gently present, their nervous system begins to learn a new truth. It begins to see that connection and safety can actually exist together, that they can be held and still be free. And that's when the ice inside them slowly begins to melt, not because you forced them to open up, but because your calm energy taught their fear to breathe again. It's a quiet process, slow, fragile, and tender. But it's real. The second sign of this emotional pattern is withdrawal. It doesn't arrive like a storm. It sneaks in quietly, almost invisibly. They start spending more time alone. They scroll through their phone, lost in endless distractions. They tell you they're just tired, or that they need space, or that they're not in the mood for company. But behind those small excuses hides a silent confession they'll never say out loud. I'm getting too close, and I'm scared I might lose myself. To someone with avoidant tendencies, closeness doesn't always mean comfort. It can feel like danger. Because deep down, their nervous system has learned an old and painful lesson, that love equals loss of independence. They were often raised in environments where affection had conditions, where love came only when they behaved a certain way, where needing someone meant surrendering control. In those early moments, they learned that love could also mean losing freedom. So now, when someone makes them feel deeply, their instincts whisper, retreat before you disappear. They don't withdraw because they want to hurt you. They do it because connection feels like drowning, like being pulled under by emotions they don't yet know how to swim through. Their withdrawal is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their internal battle to survive their own feelings. Every time they start to care more, an old fear wakes up, the fear that if they lean in, they will lose who they are. And so they step back, hoping the distance will keep them safe. But here's the sad irony. The more they love, the more they pull away. Not because they want to push you out, but because they're trying not to be consumed by the very closeness they crave most. And this is where most people panic. You can feel them slipping away, and your heart wants to chase them. You want to call, to talk, to explain, to fix what's happening. But when you chase, their fear reads it as pressure, and pressure feels like danger. Their body interprets your love as threat, even though you mean no harm. So their walls grow higher. But if you resist that urge to chase, if you take a slow breath and simply hold emotional space, something changes. In that stillness, you teach them something they've never known before, that love can exist without demand, that connection can breathe freely without control, that care doesn't have to corner them, and in that quiet patience, their fear starts to soften. They begin to feel that you're not a threat to their freedom. You're a safe place within it. That's when the avoidance slowly returns. Not because you dragged them back, but because your steady calm reminded them that real love doesn't take away their independence. It actually gives it back. And that's exactly why you become unforgettable to them. Then comes the third shift, emotional testing. This is the stage where the avoidant starts to say things that sound confusing, almost contradictory. They'll tell you things like, "I don't think I'm made for relationships," or "You deserve someone better than me," or "I'm just not emotional like you." On the surface, it sounds like they're rejecting you. It feels like they're pulling away, preparing to leave. But beneath those words lies something much more tender and hidden, a quiet plea disguised as distance. Avoidants don't test love to play games. They test to feel safe. When they say things that sound cold, what they're really asking is, "Can you still care for me when I'm scared? Can you stay even when I push you away?" They want to know if your love can hold steady when their fear shows up. They're not asking for reassurance through words. They're asking for it through your calm consistency. Every time you don't react harshly, every time you listen without judgment, every time you stay when it would be easier to leave, you show them something powerful, that not all love ends in pain. These tests are not about manipulation. They're about protection. They are their nervous system's way of asking, "Are you safe for me?" And slowly, with each moment of patience you offer, they start to believe that maybe this time closeness doesn't have to hurt. Maybe this time they can open their heart and still keep their self intact. But it takes time, often much longer than you expect. Healing from fear-based attachment is not a switch. It's a long, gentle process of unlearning what danger once felt like. And through it all, your steadiness is what teaches them safety. When you stay calm instead of panicking, when you give space instead of pressure, when you choose patience over reaction, their body begins to rewire its old patterns. They start to experience something brand new, connection that doesn't demand, love that doesn't punish, closeness that doesn't trap. Eventually, as this cycle repeats with care and trust, their heart begins to relax. They start to feel emotions without shutting down. They start to share more without fearing judgment. They begin to understand that being loved doesn't mean losing themselves, and that realization, slow and fragile as it is, becomes the foundation of real intimacy. You'll notice small things first. They make more eye contact. They text you first. They allow silence without pulling away. These tiny shifts mean everything, because they show that their nervous system is finally learning that love and safety can coexist. What heals them isn't grand gestures or perfect words. It's your gentle consistency. It's the way you keep showing up without pushing. It's the way you make space for their silence without taking it personally. It's how you stay patient when their fear tries to take control again. Over time, they start to feel what their mind never believed possible, that they can love and still be safe, they can stay close and still be free. And when that happens, something beautiful unfolds. The very person who once froze now starts to open. The one who used to pull away now leans in. They begin to love not out of fear, but out of trust. They learn that connection doesn't have to mean control. It can mean comfort. That needing someone doesn't mean weakness. It can mean strength. And that love doesn't have to be a battlefield. It can be a home. So when you meet someone who shuts down, withdraws, or tests your love, try to see beyond their reactions. Beneath every wall lies a story. Beneath every silence lies an old wound that never felt safe enough to heal. And maybe your calm, steady presence is the first time their heart realizes that safety and love can exist in the same place. When that happens, the ice begins to melt, the fear starts to fade, and what's left is something real. Love that breathes freely, love that stays, love that finally feels safe. They watch your reaction closely because all through their childhood they learned that love always comes with expectations. They were taught that the moment they show any fear or doubt, they will be judged, shamed, or left behind. So when they say things like, "I'm just not good with feelings," or "I don't think I'm built for this," what they are really saying is, "Please don't make me wrong for feeling this way." This is often the point where most connections fall apart. The other person usually panics, starts explaining too much, or tries hard to convince them not to pull away. But when that happens, their nervous system feels danger instead of safety. They go further inside themselves. The real key is staying emotionally neutral. Just breathe, listen, and meet their fear with gentle understanding. When you softly say something like, "I understand, love feels different for everyone," you're not brushing off what they feel. You're showing that you understand without trying to save them from it. That simple moment begins to shift something deep in their mind, because for the first time, their fear of love isn't punished or ignored. It's accepted. They start to realize that being close to someone doesn't mean losing control, and that being open doesn't always lead to rejection. That's when their tests begin to slow down. The sharpness in their tone begins to ease. Their eyes start to hold contact longer. Their voice softens. And it doesn't happen because you convince them to change, but because your calm presence reached the part of them that has been too scared to trust anyone. In that quiet emotional space, they begin slowly, carefully to let love in. Not because you chased their fear, but because you met it. And that made them feel safe enough to stay. After the period of pulling away and testing comes the gentlest and often most confusing stage, the reconnection signal. It hardly ever comes clearly. There's no big apology, no emotional speech, no "I missed you so much." It shows up quietly. A random "hey" late at night, a funny meme, or a small question like, "Did you eat?" Many people miss it. They roll their eyes and think, "Now they remember me?" They call it breadcrumbs. But for someone who avoids closeness, that tiny gesture isn't meaningless. It's bravery. It's their nervous system checking again, is it still safe to reach out? Because for them, showing vulnerability feels like walking on thin ice. Every message, every little attempt to get close carries real risk. The risk of being seen, of being cared for, of being hurt again. Avoidants don't express love through big romantic words or dramatic actions. They show it through small, steady efforts, quiet check-ins that whisper what their heart still can't say out loud. "I still care. I didn't stop thinking of you. I'm trying in the only way I know how." This is the point where many people react the wrong way. They answer with coldness, anger, or they test back. And that reaction only proves the avoidant's biggest fear. that closeness equals danger. The true strength lies in keeping warm neutrality. Respond calmly, without pressure or sarcasm, without turning it into a heavy moment. A simple message like, "Hey, it's nice to hear from you," tells their nervous system, "You're safe here. It's okay to come closer." That's when healing quietly begins. That's how an avoidant starts to learn that love doesn't always lead to pain. That connection can exist without control or fear. Because the truth is, when an avoidant sends that late-night message, that funny meme, or that tiny "hey," they're not only reaching out to you, they're reaching through their fear. They're choosing love in the small, fragile way they can, even if they don't yet know how to put it into words. When you meet that with gentle warmth, you're not just replying to a message, you're responding to their transformation. That's the moment the emotional distance begins to fade. The love that was once frozen in fear starts to breathe again. Now that you understand these small signals, it's time to see things differently. Avoidants are not cold or uncaring people. They are trying to handle emotions they were always taught to fear. This is where your part becomes important. Instead of trying to change the outcome or force closeness, focus on what you can control, your own energy. Stay calm, present, and centered. Your steady energy is something their nervous system can actually feel safe around. Notice the moments when they reach out, even if it's a short message, a shared post, or a quiet question. Meet these gestures with warmth, curiosity, and patience. You don't have to push or explain or fix anything. Your gentle response is enough to show that closeness doesn't have to feel dangerous. This is also a moment to check your own boundaries. Supporting someone through their fears doesn't mean losing your sense of self. It means holding space for love while also protecting your own emotional balance. The real strength isn't found in chasing or demanding answers. It's in being the steady, kind presence that they rarely find in others. It's in letting them feel truly seen without feeling trapped or forced. And when you continue this approach, the walls they've built for years will begin to soften. Trust will grow deeper, and the connection can finally feel safe, not chaotic, not uncertain. Because when you meet their fear with compassion, you're not just watching love unfold, you're helping create it. Every calm response, every gentle acknowledgement becomes a message to their heart. You're safe. You can be loved as you are. That's how real connection is built, not through chasing or convincing, but through understanding. And when that understanding finally settles in, everything changes. The love that once felt fragile becomes rooted. The person who once feared closeness starts to lean in, not because they stopped being afraid overnight, but because you showed them, through quiet steadiness, that love and fear can coexist until one gently softens the other. That's the kind of love that lasts. That's the love that heals.